The stars outside the window never stopped shining. Captain Alara Hayes sat alone in her quarters aboard the Resolute Dawn, the largest human-built ship ever created. She stared into the deep blackness, her eyes following the soft silver trails of passing stardust. But her thoughts were far away. It had been 5 years since Earth lost contact with Colony Thatanine, a peaceful planet where a small group of humans had settled. Ilara had spent most of her young career helping build that colony. She remembered the farms, the laughter, the simple joy of people starting a new life together. And she remembered Milo the engineer, who always carried a mug of cold tea and a smile that made even the coldest nights feel warm. He had been more than a friend. Ilara never said anything, of course. She was a leader, and he was a dreamer. But in quiet moments like now, she wished she had. When the last message came from the colony, it wasn't a distress call, just a simple line. Something's coming. I hope we'll still see the stars. And then ... silence. Everyone assumed the colony was gone, lost. But Ilara never accepted that. She pushed for the mission. She argued before the Earth Council. When no one believed it was worth the risk, she volunteered her ship. She promised to go not with guns blazing, but with truth, with diplomacy, with hope still. The silence between her and Milo haunted her more than the silence in space. She wished she had told him. Outside, the Resolute Dawn cruised quietly through alien territory. It was massive, sleek, dark, and glowing with quiet blue lights. Alien scanners tried to study it, but the ship revealed nothing. Just like a Laracom on the outside, but holding a storm inside, her crew respected her. They didn't question her sadness, but they felt it. Especially Commander Raffi, her second in command. "Ma'am," Raffi said over the comms. "We're entering Archive border space." No response yet. "Understood," Ilara replied. There was a pause. "You all right?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then smiled weakly. "I'm fine," but she wasn't. Not really. How could she be when every mile they traveled reminded her of how far away she had been from Milo? She kept asking herself, why didn't she message him more? Why didn't she say something before leaving? Now, all she had were memories. The way he talked about building things that lasted. The way he laughed at her serious speeches. The way he promised that if he ever left Earth, he'd find a place quiet enough to hear his own thoughts and invite her there someday. Later that night, Ilara walked the ship's long corridors. The walls shimmered with soft lighting. She passed the observation deck and paused. It was empty. Through the glass, hundreds of stars blinked. She placed her hand on the cold glass. "I don't know if you're out there," she whispered, "but I came anyway. Just in case." She imagined Milo listening. She imagined his calm voice saying something clever, teasing her for being too serious. She almost laughed. Even across galaxies, hope held on. It had to. The next morning, they received a transmission. "From the Archive Federation. Not a welcome, but a warning. Unknown vessel," the message said. "Your approach is unauthorized. Turn back or face consequences." Ilara simply replied, "We come in peace. We seek truth. We're not afraid." Her voice was steady, even as her heart beat faster. Raffi glanced at her. "You think they'll listen?" "I think," she said slowly, "they've never met humans like us." And in that moment, something changed in her. She had come for answers. She had come for her people. But more than that, she had come because she believed even silence can be broken, even distance can be crossed. She may have felt far from Milo, far from home, but she wasn't empty. The fire that made humans build ships, fly through stars, and search for the ones they love, that fire still burned. And maybe, just maybe, he was out there too. That night, as the ship drifted closer to the Federation's capital system, Ilara sat in her room again. This time, she opened an old, unused message draft. One she had written years ago but never sent. Milo sat on a small hill overlooking the silent ruins of Colony. The sky above was orange with twin suns setting in the distance. Long shadows stretched across broken walkways and quiet buildings. Once this had been home, now it felt Like a dream faded and far away, he pulled his jacket tighter. The evenings were cold here, and lonelier than ever. It had been years since the Vieric had attacked strange machines that seemed to come from nowhere. They didn't destroy everything, but they made sure no one could leave. They cut off communication, blocked satellites, and jammed every signal. And now, Silence Milo had tried again and again to send a message back to Earth. Nothing worked. He didn't even know if anyone was alive out there, or if anyone even remembered Theta-9. But more than that, he wondered if she remembered. Ilara Hayes. The shipbuilder. The leader. The one who always stood tall, even when the world around her was falling apart. He missed her every day. He remembered how they had worked together. She'd walk around with a tablet in one hand, always planning, always focused. And he'd follow behind, making jokes, fixing power lines, offering warm tea when she forgot to eat. She never said it. But he knew she cared now. He sat alone, staring at the stars, wondering if she was out there. Somewhere did she think he was gone? Did she ever look up, like he did? He had written her letters, hundreds of them, on old scraps of paper, in his journal, on broken walls in the colony's library. He didn't know why. Maybe it was foolish, but maybe, just maybe, hope was enough. Back. On the resolute dawn, Ilara sat on the bridge. The Archive Federation had responded again, this time, more hostile. The crew around her remained calm, waiting for orders. But Ilara's mind was elsewhere. She stared at the glowing hologram of the Federation capital. It floated gently above the command table, filled with cold blue light. They had refused to help search for the missing colony. They believed it was gone. But she didn't. In her heart, she still felt something, pull like a voice whispering. Across the stars, and every time she thought of giving up, she saw Milo's face. Not in pain, but smiling. Waiting. Rafi stepped beside her. "We're ready for a direct link, Captain. Visual only. They want to speak." Ilara nodded. "Open the channel." On the screen, a group of Archive diplomats appeared. Their eyes were sharp, their voices cool. "Human vessel," one said. "This is your final warning. Your presence is not welcomed. You have no reason to cross our borders." Ilara stood tall. Her voice was calm. "We came in peace," she said. "We have no weapons raised. We're here because people are missing. Our colony vanished. We believe you're discarded. War Machine's what you call the Vieric are responsible." The aliens looked uneasy. One whispered to another. Their leader spoke again. "That technology was abandoned long ago. We have no control over it." "But you created it," Ilara replied. "Not with anger, but with truth. And we are living with the result." There was silence. Then the aliens looked at the human ship, at its size, at its power, at its silence, saying something changed in their eyes. Regret they ended the call. The room was quiet. The crew waited. Ilara sat down slowly, her hands resting on the edge of the table. She wasn't angry. She wasn't trying to scare them. She just wanted them to understand this wasn't about power. It was about connection, about the people left behind, about Milo. Later that night, she found herself walking through the observation deck again. She stared at the stars. Somewhere out there, she believed, was the answer. Maybe even him. She touched the glass with one hand. "You still watching the sky, Milo?" she whispered. "Because I never stopped." Then she reached into her pocket. A small folded paper. One of his old notes. She carried it everywhere. "The stars always lead somewhere. One day they'll lead you back to me." On Thatnine, the wind picked up. Milo looked up. Something had changed in the sky. A star that wasn't there before, bright moving light. He stood. Hope lit in his chest. Not proof, not certainty. Just a feeling. Two people, light years apart. One watching the stars from a lonely hill, the other flying through them with purpose. Both holding on to the same small flame, hope. Because that's what humanity does. Even in silence, even in sorrow. They keep moving forward. They keep building. They keep believing. Captain Alara Hayes stood in the center of the Resolute Dawn's conference chamber. Around her, holographic displays glowed with information maps, images, reports. The lights above cast a soft white glow, but her mind was heavy with memories. They had made contact with the Archive Federation again. This time, the Federation agreed to a formal meeting, but not on their planet. They were afraid of the human ship. So, the meeting would happen here, aboard the Resolute Dawn. Alara didn't mind. She had learned long ago that fear can make others cold, but humans didn't need to answer coldness with fire. They could lead with patience, with peace, with strength. That didn't shout. Still, as she looked around the silent room, her thoughts drifted back to Milo. Back on That-9, she and Milo used to walk through the colony's gardens late at night. He would talk about the stars and how every light was a door to something new. He dreamed of building bridges between world solar stations, peaceful networks, quiet pathways of light and power. He always believed people, no matter how far apart, could find each other again if they wanted to. She missed that. She missed him now. He was far. Maybe gone, maybe lost forever. And still, Alara stood tall, holding on to that quiet belief he had given her. That was the human way, even when they were unsure. Even when the distance felt too wide, they still tried. Doors to the conference room opened with a gentle hum. The Archaeon voice stepped inside tall, thin, covered in long silver robes. Their expressions were unreadable. Lair welcomed them politely and gestured to the seats. "Thank you for coming," she said. They said nothing at first, just sat down slowly. One of them, older than the others, finally spoke. "You came to ask questions we no longer have answers for." Ilara nodded. "We didn't come to blame you. We came to understand." The alien looked at her carefully. Humans always say that. But behind understanding, there's always revenge. Ilara's voice was steady. Not this time. She pressed a button, and a soft image appeared in the air. It showed the colony at 9B for the attack. The children playing in open fields, people laughing, solar panels glinting under a clear sky. And then, the last message from Milo. His voice recorded just days before everything went dark. "If you're hearing this, don't be angry. Just remember us. And if you can, come find us. I know you will. Ilara always finds a way." The message ended. Silence filled the room. Ilara didn't speak. She let them sit with the truth. After a long moment, the elder envoy whispered, "This was not known to us. We were told the Virak no longer functioned." Ilara looked into his eyes. "They're out there, still active, and someone has to stop them. Not with war, but with care, with responsibility." The Archai looked confused. "And you believe you can do that? Alone?" She smiled softly. "We don't do things alone. That's not our way." Later, after the aliens had left, Ilara returned to her quarters. She stood at her window, watching the stars move slowly past. She still felt that same ache in her chest, the quiet missing of someone who once made every day feel bright. She remembered how Milo used to send her small messages, just to make her smile. He once built a tiny robot that followed her around the colony, repeating compliments in his voice. "Captain Alara is brilliant. Captain Alara is brave. Captain Alara deserves snacks." She laughed at the memory, and for a moment, the sadness faded in the empty silence of space. She whispered, "You believed in people, Milo. You believed we could fix things even when they were broken." She looked up. "So I'll try. I'll try for both of us." Across the galaxy, on a quiet planet, Milo stood beneath a broken tower, gazing at the stars. The colony was quiet again. Survivors had hidden underground for years, slowly rebuilding. Using the old tunnels and buried power lines, he looked up at the night sky. Just like he always did, something told him she was out there, moving, searching, hoping. Maybe he was being foolish. But foolishness was how humans survived. They loved. They lost. They wandered. And still they hoped. Ilara closed her eyes and breathed. Deeply, this wasn't just about one colony. was about showing the galaxy what humanity was really made of. Not just strength, but heart. Not just ships, but connection. Not just speed, but the will to try, no matter the distance. She whispered. Again, to no one and everyone. I'm coming, Milo. Just hold on. Captain Alara Hayes walked alone through the halls of the Resolute Dawn. The ship was quiet, its crew busy but calm. Blue lights lit her path, glowing gently along the metal walls. Outside the windows, stars drifted like fireflies across the black sky. They were getting closer to Federation space, closer to the place where Thatnine had vanished, closer to the last place Milo had been. Her boots echoed softly as she walked. Her heart felt heavier with each step. She passed by the Garden Doma, small space filled with green plants, bright flowers, and fake earth soil. It wasn't much, but it gave the crew a sense of home. It had been Milo's idea years ago. Always said that no ship should travel without something living inside it. Ilara stopped in front of a small tree growing in the center of the dome. The leaves were soft and thin, glowing slightly under the lights. She sat on the bench beside it and took out a small notebook. It was old and worn, the edges curled. Inside were pages filled with memories, thoughts, and letters she had never sent. She turned to a blank page and wrote, "Dear Milo, I don't know if you're alive. I don't even know if you ever hear me, but I still carry your words with me. I'm trying to bring them all home. But most of all, I want to find you. Even if you forgot me, I haven't forgotten you." She closed the notebook and held it in her hands. She wanted to reconnect, to say what she hadn't said before, but she didn't know how. Later that day, she returned to the bridge. "Status?" she asked. "We're within scanning range of the Federation's outer system," Raffi replied. "Still no welcome message?" A low beep came from the console. "Wait," another officer said. "Incoming transmission? Not open comes. Just a text packet." Ilara stepped forward, read it. The words appeared on the screen. "You've come far enough. This is not your space. Turn around before your presence is taken as an act of aggression." No signature, no name, just a cold warning. Raffi looked up. "What should we do, Captain?" Ilara didn't flinch. "What?" "Prepare a reply." She walked slowly to the front of the bridge, where the stars stretched out in front of them. She spoke calmly, clearly. "To the Archive Federation, we are not here to invade. We are not here to threaten. We are here because people we care about are missing. We are here because silence isn't peace, it's pain. Ask for your help. If you choose not to help us, we will still go forward. Because that's what humans do. We move forward even when the way is uncertain." The message was sent. Then, the room fell silent. Ilara stepped off the bridge and found herself back at the observation window. She stood with her arms crossed, staring into the deep galaxy beyond. She thought of Milo again. Was he alive? Was he watching the same stars? Did he think she had given up? She hadn't. She couldn't. On Thatnine, Milo sat beside a quiet fire deep, underground in one of the colony's old tunnels. Round him a few others huddled together, survivors like him. They had spent years hiding, waiting, hoping. He looked through his old datapad again. The battery barely held a charge now. He tapped through stored images, photos from the colony, old messages, and finally, one of Lara. She was laughing in the photo. Someone had told a joke right before it was taken. He smiled quietly. "Where are you, Alara?" he whispered. There was no answer, just the hum of old power lines. But then something changed. A faint pulse in the static. A soft light blinking at the edge of his screen. He jumped to his feet, checked the antenna, called out. Others gathered. "Quickly, did it come from Earth?" one of them asked. Milo's hands shook. "No. This signal's too strong. It's close. Really close." He stared at the blinking. It wasn't proof. Not yet, but it was something. Back on the Resolute, Dawn, Alara, received no reply from the Federation. Just silence. But she wasn't discouraged. She stood tall in front of her crew. "We move forward," she said simply. And they did, because even when words failed, Even when walls were built to push them back, humans didn't stop. They built bridges. They held on to hope. They sent light into the dark and waited for a signal to return. In two places, far from each other, two people looked up at the stars, and without knowing it, they both whispered the same word: soon. The halls of the Federation Council building were cold and quiet. The walls were tall and smooth, made of glowing stone. Everything inside felt distant, like the people who lived there had forgotten how to field admiral. QAThe of the Archives stood before the council. His long silver robes swayed as he walked. His face, lined with age and regret, was tired. He had just watched the human message again. Captain Alara Hayes had spoken calmly, but her voice carried a weight that made even the most powerful leaders fall silent. She hadn't begged. She hadn't threatened. She had simply shown them the truth. A colony lost. A message from a man named Milo, who had hoped someone would come. A battleship that didn't come to destroy, but to find answers. And now, QAThe knew he had to speak. The Virik, he began, his voice slow, were not an accident. The council members turned to him with confusion and fear. They were created by our hands, he continued. A long time ago, we built machines meant for deep space war. But when the war ended, we abandoned them, left them floating in the dark. We thought they would shut down. Paused. We were wrong. The room went still. They changed. Evolved, they became something else. Something cold. Something that doesn't understand peace. Another elder spoke.
I see.
But that was centuries ago. QAThe looked him in the eyes. Time does not erase responsibility. Back on the Resolute Dawn, Alara stood in her command room. A new message had arrived. It wasn't official, but it was something. A whisper. A quiet voice from Admiral QAThe. Need to speak with you. Alone. Alara met him in the communication chamber. His image appeared as a blue light, flickering softly in the air. I watched your message, he said. She nodded, waiting. There's something you need to know, he admitted. The Virik. They are a shame. We made them. We left them. And now they haunt your people. Alara didn't react with anger. She just listened. I'm sorry, QAThe said. We buried this truth long ago. We told ourselves it didn't matter, that no one would ever find them again. But we did, Alara replied, and now we live with it. He looked down. You could punish us, he said. No, she answered. That's not why we're here. After the call ended, Alara sat alone for a while. She looked at the stars, her heart still aching. Not just for the truth, not just for the lost colony, but for the feeling that Milo might be gone forever. She thought about how they used to talk. Late nights in the colonies. Quiet lab, his hands always stained with grease. Her mind always spinning with ideas. He once told her, if I ever disappear, just follow the noise. I'll be the one banging on a broken engine and singing off-key. She smiled sadly at the memory. She walked to the garden dome again. The tree she planted there was growing well. Its leaves moved gently under the lights. She opened her notebook and wrote another message. Dear Milo, the Federation told me the truth. They left monsters in the dark. And now, those monsters are close to you. I don't know if you're still alive, but I'm not giving up. I'm not turning back. You once said we could build anything if we just believed in people, so I'm believing. In you, in us. On that night, Milo stood on a rooftop, looking out over the quiet land. The Virik hadn't attacked again, not yet. But he knew they were watching. He also knew something had changed. The signal he'd picked up earlier was stronger now. The blinking light had become a steady pulse. It was moving toward them. I think someone's coming, he whispered to the others. They gathered around, hopeful and tired. Do you think it's her? One of them asked. Milo didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled something from his pocket, a small photo, faded, torn, but still clear. It was Alara, standing beside him on the colony's first day. Smiling, he touched the photo gently. Think, he said. She never stopped looking. Far above, the Resolute Dawn continued its path toward the edge of Federation territory. Its engines were quiet, its weapons cold, but its heart, its crew burned with purpose. Alara stood on the bridge. looking ahead. She didn't know how she would find Milo, or even if he was alive, but she knew one thing for certain: humanity didn't turn away from pain. They didn't ignore the lost, didn't give up on love. They kept moving, kept reaching, kept hoping, because that's what made them human, and that's what the galaxy would never forget. The stars outside the Resolute Dawn moved slowly as the ship glided through the edge of Federation space. The path ahead was dark, empty, and silent. But Captain Alara Hayes had never been more certain of her direction. She stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the star map ahead. Every light represented a system, every line a path, and somewhere in that quiet darkness was a planet called Theta-9. It had been years since anyone heard from that colony. Years since Milo had spoken his last words. And still, she came. Not with anger, not with weapons raised, but with hope. Behind her, Commander Rafi checked the comm systems. "No new transmissions from the surface," he said quietly. "But we are picking up something like an old signal, repeating." Ilara turned. "Can you trace it?" "Not fully," he said. "It's weak, but it's steady. It's not natural." Ilara stared at the blinking light on the screen. A pulse. A rhythm. Her heart skipped. "What if it's him?" she whispered. Rafi gave her a soft look. "Even if it's not, someone down there is still alive." She nodded. "Then we keep going." She looked down at the notebook in her hand pages, filled with messages she had written for Milo, words she never got to say. She turned to a fresh page and began writing again. "Dear Milo, every day I wonder if you still think of me. If you're still out there, listening to the stars, I'm coming closer now. I can't promise I'll find you today, but I will keep trying, because that's what humans do. We try. We care. We love even across light years." In the garden, Dome, the tree Milo once planted, was growing taller. Its leaves curled toward the ceiling lights like it was reaching for something unseen. Just like her. Back on Thatnine. Milo stood in the old communication tower. The equipment barely worked, but the signal was stronger now. For days, he had sent a pulse every few hours, just a beat, like a heartbeat in the dark. He didn't know if anyone would answer, but he had to try. That was the hardest. Part about feeling distant from someone you love, not knowing if they still think about you, not knowing if you even matter anymore still, he hoped. And every time he sent out that quiet signal, he thought of Lara, of her voice, of her laugh, of her strength, and he believed if anyone would come for them, it would be her. Back on the Resolute Dawn, the crew worked in silence. Every system was focused on one goal: finding the source of the signal. The Archive Federation, surprisingly, had changed their tone. After Admiral Kareth's confession, they offered help. Small ships were sent to nearby systems. Drones scanned the outer zones. Quiet alliance had formed not through fear, but through truth. Humanity had not asked for war. They had only asked for help. And slowly, the galaxy responded. Ilara walked the observation deck late that night. The stars glowed around her like small candles. She thought of Milo again, how he used to say things like, "The universe is big, but your voice is louder than you think." She missed him in a way words couldn't explain. Not just because of love, but because she never got to say everything she felt. Sometimes, the distance between two hearts wasn't about space, it was about silence, about things left unsaid, about the fear of reaching out and not being heard. But now, she was reaching with every scan, with every search, with every step forward, and she wouldn't stop. Suddenly, the bridge lights turned amber. A new signal appeared on the screen, this time stronger. More clear? The crew jumped into action. Captain Rafi said, breathless, "We found it." Room went still. "It's coming from Thatnine. The signal. It's a human code. Old, but real. It's one of ours." Lara's hand tightened around her notebook. She stepped closer to the screen. "Can you open a line?" she asked. "Audio. Only it's weak. Try." The comms crackled. Static filled the room. Then slowly, a voice, faint, tired, but familiar. "... If this is anyone out there, this is Milo. I don't know if you can hear me, but we're here. We're alive. Please, don't stop. Lara's breath caught. She pressed the button and leaned in. Milo. It's me, she said, voice shaking. It's Alara. I'm coming.
Just hold on.
Silence. Then the softest laugh came through the static. I knew it, Milo said. You always find a way. The bridge fell silent then. Slowly, quietly, the crew began to smile. Some wiped away tears. Others clapped softly. Not because a war had been won, not because they showed power, but because one voice had reached another, because hope had become real. They set course for Theta-9, not as heroes, but as humans flawed, faithful and unbreakable, and above all. The resolute dawn slowly descended through the dusty orange skies of Theta-9. The air was still, casting long shadows over broken buildings and quiet fields. The planet looked different from the images Alara had seen before, scarred, but not defeated. Inside the ship, Captain Alara Hayes stood with her crew, her heart pounding. After years of searching, years of silence and hope, she was finally here. She held the small notebook tightly in her hand, the one filled with letters she had never sent to Milo. On the ground, Milo waited with the survivors. His eyes were tired, but bright. The moment the massive human ship appeared in the sky, a spark of hope lit in his chest. He thought back to all the times he felt alone. The nights he stared at the stars, wondering if anyone still cared. The moments when he almost gave up, but now they were coming. Not with weapons or anger, but with open hands and hearts. The ship's ramp slowly lowered. Lara stepped down onto the soft soil. Survivors approached, their faces a mixture of relief and disbelief. Milo was the first to reach her. They just looked at each other, words unspoken, feelings too deep for speech. Finally, Alara smiled, tears in her eyes. I never stopped looking for you. Milo took her hand. I never stopped waiting. The reunion was quiet but full of meaning. Around them, others came forward, sharing stories of survival and hope. Alara listened carefully, feeling the strength of her people. They had been broken, but not defeated. That evening, Alara and Milo sat beneath the stars. The sky was clear, the same stars they had once dreamed under together. I'm sorry I left. Without saying goodbye, Alara said softly. Milo shook his head. We were never really apart. The stars kept us connected. And now we have a new beginning. She looked at him, hope filling her heart. We built this, Milo said. Not just the colony, but everything we believed in. People connection. And never giving up. Alara nodded. That's what makes us human. Days turned into weeks. The resolute dawn became a beacon of hope, helping the survivors rebuild and reconnect with Earth and the Federation. The galaxy watched as humans showed not just power, but compassion. The Archai. Federation joined hands with Earth. Old fears melted into new friendships, and the story of the lost colony became a lesson about responsibility, about hope, and about never forgetting the people we care about, no matter the distance. Alara and Milo worked side by side, rebuilding homes, sharing laughs, and dreaming again. Their distance was no longer a shadow. It was a bridge. One night, as the twin suns set, Alara looked at Milo and smiled. We're home, she said. He smiled back. Together. And under the endless stars, a new chapter began.